We've got an obesity problem, fair and square, we know it, we got it. Should we tax sugars and sweeteners because, theoretically, they're what's making us fat? Joining us now is Rick Berman. He's the director of the Center for Consumer Freedom. Rick, I believe your position is don't put taxes on corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, don't put taxes on sugar, no sin taxes, it won't work and it's not our responsibility, right?
That's right, and it doesn't work, and the fact is that there are people out there who are suggesting that we should do this for soda, for soft drinks, for fruit juices, and then they'll be telling you that we've got to do it on cakes, on cookies, on ice cream. The list goes on, and this is not the way the tax code ought to be used.
Now, let me just give you the alternative argument. I mean, we do have an obesity problem. I think there's widespread agreement on that. Many people are flat out overweight, and that leads to all kinds of medical conditions which cost us all money. My position might be, hey, look, I'm paying for this. Why should I pay for other people who are wildly overweight? I'm not, they are. Why do I have to pay for them? Why don't we tax them and have some of the cost borne by them? That's not a bad argument, is it?
Well, no, it's not a bad argument, but when you start to tax soft drinks or fruit juices, then you're taxing everybody, whether they be thin or they be overweight. And you also mentioned high fructose corn syrup. There's a sub-argument here, and there are people who think that high fructose corn syrup is worse than table sugar or beet sugar. And fact is that the American Medical Association, the American Dietetic Association say these are identical calorically, they're identical metabolically, and so we even have a subset of this argument so that people want to tax a certain kind of sugar more than other kinds of sugar, and the insanity on this is hard to believe.
But the government is desperate for revenue. You're kind of a sitting target. I mean, the sweetener industry, if I can put it like that, kind of a sitting duck in this because they got to have revenues from someplace. And you could be easily demonized as the reason why we're fat. You and McDonald's are killing us. That's what they'll say.
Well, yeah, they will, but in fact, if you're talking about revenue, and they're usually looking for revenue in this case because of health care costs, then you ought to be able to tax motorcycles because they're more dangerous than getting around in a car, and you ought to be able to tax almost anything that's got some health-related outcome that you think is adverse. And as I said earlier, if you start to pick on a certain kind of food, then you can just keep moving down the line because anything that's got calories in it is suspect. And we're losing the concept of personal responsibility, and the tax code is now designed to teach you personal responsibility by denying you some of your money and steering you away from certain choices. And we just don't think that that's the way that you should use the tax code.
Rick, I think, if I may express an opinion, I think you're going to win this argument. Because I don't think they will narrow it down to a sweetener tax or a corn fructose tax. I think they will go for an overall consumption tax, which taxes everything we buy and eat. Whether it's a value-added tax or a national sales tax, a broad-based tax, I think you'll win the definitive argument. They won't tax the individual sweetener, they'll just tax everything we buy.
Well, or they might just start to figure out that we're spending too much money and buying too much through the government that we can't afford. You know, when we've got a $12 trillion debt and we're now going to raise the debt ceiling again and we're in a deficit of $1.4 trillion this year, I don't think it's a tax problem. It's clearly a spending problem.
No argument from me on that one, Rick Berman. And we thank you very much indeed for taking time out to be with us today. Prove it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you.